Liftoff now 9 minutes away. So terminal count. Control has been given over to the GLS, the ground launch sequencer, a computer and software that is doing all of the commanding and monitoring of the space launch system. We'll hear call-outs from the GLS operator, Alex Pandalos.
我操，你这个 ID 真是很难说。
As well as NASA Test Director Jeff Spaulding. GLS is pre-tensioning the umbilicals at this very moment. You can see them as they run down the rocket. That's getting them ready to detach. At liftoff, those arms will swing away, will let go of the rocket in a clockwise direction.
你还给我发地址有的
啊？怎么了？卡吗？
没有，我刚刚在找你的名字，也没有看到你给我发的地址啊，有了。是
T-minus 8 minutes and counting.
我想你这个用户名根本找不到。
是。
GLS is
这个日漫里的角色
performing up to 100 commands per second. Including configuring ground systems for power transfer to the rocket.
我感觉可能是之前那个 Nash 是不是有点问题
？GLS is turning on cameras, recording video inside and outside the crew module to collect data for engineers.
我已经怕了，
赶上就好了。
Purging the aft skirt booster with high flow nitrogen. Clear out any hydrogen gas that may be there. You can see the crew access arm is already retracted. When there is crew during Artemis-2, it would happen at T-minus 6 minutes. But out of abundance of caution, they went ahead and retracted the arm well ahead of liftoff. Want to point your attention to the base of the mobile launcher. If something wasn't done to reduce the power from the pressure caused by the rocket's ignition and thunderous sound, it could damage the rocket. So the ignition overpressure and sound suppression system will flood the mobile launcher with water. You'll see that sequence start at T-minus 17 seconds. Now coming up in less than 30 seconds, the ground launch sequencer will start bringing the high energy systems online. Starting with core stage
高能系统启动，然后就是心急加压，他说是倒计时30秒，不是吧？
我看看它的时间表。
Fire room 1 is completely silent as they listen to the next
6分钟的话，现在应该是2人内部电源，然后是下一个时间应该是星际的电压是终止续加。
The replenish valve to the liquid hydrogen tank now closing. The liquid oxygen tank will come a little later. Now we're arming your Orion Set Pyros to transfer to internal power.
可以，我把视频的音量再调一下。
我就在听原版的声。
The launch abort system or LAS jettison motor is now armed.
现在可以吗？感觉一下。
Is inactive because there is no crew on board. Up next is the flight termination system, or FTS, which gives the Space Force the ability to destruct the rocket if it goes in the wrong direction. Let's listen in for that.
我感觉现在才真实感越来越强。
是。
刚才在忙这种直播的感觉，好像还没有什么真实感。现在越来越。
我现在就祈祷，祈祷不仅是火箭，各方面都不要出问题。
不要换。是的。那就太煞风景。
Good word, we've passed that. The cryo team got the LH2 engine bleed pressure loop dialed in. They are now at the right temperature for launch. Countdown continues. T-minus 4 minutes, 15 seconds. Up next, GLS fires up the KPUs Those are high-speed turbines which provide pressure to hydraulic pumps that steer the RS-25s. Stands for Core Stage Auxiliary Power Unit Start.
GLS is go for Core Stage APU start.
That now leads
Core
to
stage
the thrust vector control test at T-minus 2 minutes and 30 seconds. That can proceed now, and we will see the engine's gimbal at the bottom of the core stage.
现在测试引擎矢量了，好像是。来给个镜头呗。
对，
镜头不给。
At T-minus 3 minutes and 10 seconds, you will hear the go for purge sequence 4. That's a helium purge of the 4 core stage engines downstream of the propellant valve, getting the air and moisture.
氦气吹除吧，这个应该是。Helium purge。
应该是。可能就是喷一下氦气，把周围的一些不相应的气体给
应该起到密封的作用，应该是我记得是氦气在 RS-25 里面是起到密封的作用。
OK， 可以。那刚才是应该是液氧的排出口关闭，所以现在是就在冒气的，现在没冒。底下这个是底下这个就是 purge 吗？在现在喷的，
可能是。
引擎矢量在动。好，引擎的矢量动作测试，这个还很明显。
They will operate at 109% performance. Each RS-25 throwing down 500,000 pounds of thrust. All 4, 2 million pounds. All together with the boosters, 8.8 million pounds of thrust.
GLS is go for upper stage to internal power.
Now the upper stage is gone.
上面级切换内部电源。
So power is removed from the rocket's upper stage, the ICPS, and it's been switched to battery power.
我这边直播开的是固定5秒延迟，我之前开了一个超低延迟的，我现在不知道之前那个中断问题到底是由哪个因素导致的，所以我现在先开了一个正常延迟的直播，所以可能就有5秒钟延迟。如果你觉得有延迟，你可以快进一下，看是不是真的有那么大的延迟。我这边应该已经是跟 NASA 的直播已经是最小的延迟了。
The rocket's core stage, which houses the 3 flight computers, is now on battery power. So there's no more hold time available because there's no more margin on the batteries. So if we have a hold, we'd have to recycle back to T-minus 10 minutes and recharge those batteries. The count continues. A note now, shortly after.
点火机现在应该是充电状态嘛，就是他说如果要是暂停的话，那么就要直接把倒计时调到前10分钟。
And my colleague Leah Cheshire will take over commentary. T-minus 50 seconds and counting. Coming up at T-minus 33 seconds, the GLS will hand off control to the ALS.
才结束那个上级的氢气补充。
It will take over command and control.
体检30秒的时候就自动发射了，应该是。
Coming from the ground up until T-minus
20. Go for ALS.
Go for ALS. The Space Launch System is now counting down to liftoff of Orion's maiden voyage to the moon.
Automated launch sequence 就进入发射流程自动化。
哦，原来是这个缩写。
我来看它的时间表，小抄在面前。
And here we go.
来了。
Hydrogen burn-off igniters initiating. 7, 6, 5. Core stage engine start. 3, 2, 1. Boosters ignition.
Booster ignition.
And liftoff of Artemis-1. We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
OK， 前往月球了。重返月，对，他们是重返月球的第一步啊。
All 4 RS-25 engines on the core stage and 2 solid rocket boosters now propelling the vehicle at 100 miles per hour.
我和那个什么于老师那边好像连接不是特别稳定。我不知道我的声音应该是正常的。
看你那边做主播呢，应该是相对好一些，肯定会好一些。我这边现在就是我的音，我的声音比较连续了。哇，我的声音也很赞。
now traveling 607 miles per hour.
没有一个那个发射 UI 呀、
对，没有流程表。我不知道它的 Max Q 什么时候。
不仅是没有流程表，还没有那个发射高度和速度。我估计等一下，说不定是不是就出来了？
什么都没有。他说要到 Max Q 对吧？播报是。发射计时和高速表还有那个事件表都没有。纯纯的画面，咦，刚刚是1分20秒收拾。
T+1分21秒好像是。现在又开始恢复推力了，对。
那么应该已经通过 Max Q 了。
30秒后就 SRB 分离。
对，固体助推的分离。
We're now 16 miles downrange from the launch pad at Kennedy Space Center, traveling over 2,800 miles per hour.
Downrange 16英里了。
Standing by for solid rocket booster jettison, and shortly thereafter.
他播报还有回音。这是已经分离了吗？
对 ，SRB 分离了。
现在刚开始熄火的一个火焰弹，现在看到是分离，对，确实。哇，全部给地面开始了，看得很清楚了。
就没有建摇吗？
可以啊，可以啊。23分24秒是 Surface Module Panel Jetson， 应该就是头上一个
T+1分36秒。
这是什么？
哦，这下有 UI 了。
这 UI 这是它的一个遥感画面吧？
这个估计是那个什么吧？是不是 WB57的那个？
哦，对，可能是对 W75的那个就航拍画面，航拍更多画面。对对对。
Just over 3 minutes into the flight of Artemis-1, now traveling over 4,060 miles per hour, 83 miles downrange. We just had confirmation that the service
他们为什么不用
module
火箭
has
上面的画
separated.
面？还是没有有一个这是哪个部位的画面？
And that the launch abort system pyros have fired, separating those from Orion.
逃逸塔分离应该是。
For future crew members.
What？ 操，什么情况？直播事故吗？他们主播声音没了。
哈人呢？
We just heard the call for 3-engine press, meaning if SLS were to lose an engine at this point in the mission, we could still achieve a nominal mission. We would just have an extended main engine cutoff time. However, we still have 4 good engines, all at maximum thrust right now, powering the first flight of Artemis at 5,200
刚才那个突然中断有点吓人。
148 miles downrange.
当然，是他们主播那里断了。现在就真动画了。他刚刚的意思就是说，现在已经进入到一个即使有引擎失常的话，也可以继续任务的状态。哦，有时间了，终于有时间了。他们现在才把时间放出来，搞笑。
最关键是应该有速度和高度呀。
这个我已经不抱希望，这个拿到直播很多都没有。已经4分多了。刚刚塔塔确实已经没了。
Panels, fairings separate, as well as the launch abort system. The launch abort system was inert for this flight.
应该就是它上面内部座上面的一个保护板啊，机动力保护板。
Those 4 core stage engines will continue to fire and
我不知道正式的名称，但一般好像是叫什么照？
没想想，好吧，也叫人的照。
Booster flight controller
可是
reports that the
整个
engines are
群吗？
looking good.
我好像以前看了，忘了。总归是待会是主引擎是要点到8分04秒。
Cutoff time is about 8 minutes and 3 seconds. We are now at 5 minutes
03
and
秒。
11 seconds into the flight.
我们还有3分钟的主引擎点火时间。
对，差不多。
Again, 4 good core stage engines. Those 4 RS-25 engines. The last time those core stage engines flew, they were taking space shuttles to orbit, and now with upgraded capabilities, they're launching the future of human spaceflight.
对，提一脚就是4个引擎都是以前从那个航天飞机上拆下来的，都是用过
5
的旧引
minutes,
擎。
42 seconds into the mission, we are now traveling 8,800 miles
对的。
per hour, 345
我
miles
想把
downrange
记
from the launch
写
pad
过
at
来着，
Kennedy Space
明白吗？
Center.
就是这些引擎都用过几次来着？忘了。
Again, we are anticipating core stage main engine cutoff
这
in
个得要
about 8
查一
minutes
查
and
了，
3 seconds.
但是我现在很
About 10
紧张。
seconds later, we'll see core stage separation, at which
上
point
次
Orion and the
上次
interim
直播的时候
corrected
我也写过
propulsion
小
stage
抄
will
的，
be flying free.
找不到了。
Now traveling over 10,000 miles per hour, 6
无
minutes
所谓。
and 15 seconds into the flight of Artemis-1, 427
到
miles
这个阶段应
downrange.
该就
Quiet
应该就
here
还
on
不
the
错
loops
了，
in
还没
Mission
什么太
Control
大问题的。
Houston.
我觉得
Teams
应该是
continue
能
to
顺利
monitor
的。
this first
我
flight.
就这样的还把他们没死吧。啊，你担心是直播的。对，现在是就一个模
About a
拟动
minute
画
and a
了。
half now until that core stage main engine cutoff time.
为什么不能搞个
engines continue
火
to
箭外
fire
面
at
的
maximum thrust.
摄像头吗？我觉得他们应该是有的，但不给而已。他们自己也需要一个画面来监测火箭的工作状态吧？应该。
Coming up on 7 minutes since launch today, now traveling over
你刚才直播黑了一
12,800
下。
miles per hour, 563
好
miles
了。
downrange. Again,
是
still quiet here in Mission
我
Control
刚才
Houston.
把那个鼠标指针那个隐藏了一下，但不知道为什么点了一下隐藏，它就不见了。
重整了一下，我看。
As we prepare for main engine cutoff, the 4 RS-25 engines are beginning to throttle down.
因为这个最后这一部分是要那个减少过载，应该是，所以要 throttle down， 应该是这个原因。
有可能是。那 throttle down 就是减小推力。
30 seconds now until core stage main engine cutoff. All 4 engines
还有
continue to throttle down.
对，还有30秒就
4个引擎都在持续
关闭发动机了。
激活。刚才4个引擎
Now
都在
7
持续
minutes
的
45
减
seconds
小推
into the
力。
flight, traveling over 16,000 miles per hour.
你
Continuing
倒
to
是
hear
直接
good
给个
calls
速度，你
here
播
in
报
Mission
时
Control Houston.
显示一下不好吗？
We're standing by for core stage main engine cutoff.
好，准备要一级的熄火了，应该已经熄火了，看有没有确认。
还多点
And
了一
we
会儿
have
嘛，
confirmation of core stage main engine cutoff.
只是
Orion
动画还
is
在
now
点。
in Earth's orbit. Flight dynamics officer
对。
reports that we have a nominal main engine cutoff. And we just
哎，
heard the call for
现在还
core
没放出
stage
吧？放出了吗？
separation. That means Orion
啊，
and
一对
interim
分离
cryogenic
分离分离。
propulsion stage are now flying free from the core
现在
stage
转
of
了
the
一转，
Space
一到
Launch
上去了。
System. The next milestone will be solar array deploy approximately 18 minutes after liftoff. But before Orion stretches its wings, let's check back in with our friends at Kennedy Space Center and hear all
最后
about
是什么时
what
候
it？ was like to hear the rocket roar off the launch pad. Megan and Kayla, I've got to hear all about it.
先是飞船展开太阳能板是18分20秒，然后是
Artemis-1 launch, our first step towards our next
它
adventure.
太阳能板展开短12
As
分
Leah
钟，
said, I'm NASA's Megan Cruz, and this is NASA
然后再
astronaut Kayla
是
Barron.
深度是从
I'm
50分钟开
so
始。
giddy and
好了，
speechless. I don't
今
even
天
know how to
我
explain
进入一段很长的休息
how
时
I'm
间了。
feeling right now.
I feel the same
是。
way. This is the first launch that I've been able to
I
watch in
know.
person, and I've got to say it was incredible. I was just it took my breath
Imagine,
away, and I was
I feel
tearing up.
amazing.
Just what an amazing accomplishment for this
不光是
team.
他们这个
This
发起准备
international
过程很闹
team
心，
who
我
have
直
been
播也很闹
dedicating
心。
years to getting this rocket off the ground.
字幕可以移动位置，
The
但
first
是
step
移
being
动
able to
在
go on that
上部
vertical
的话，
back
我
to
觉
the
得会
moon. It
比
was
下
just
部更那个
incredible.
什么一点。
Yeah, this is a moment I think that
就
we're
反
all
正
going
我
to
觉得
remember
这会儿
where
没什么
we
东西的话就
were
放着，
when we
待会儿
saw
如
this
果说
sort of thing, you
有
know what I mean? And it was
有
great to
其他东西
see.
的时候就
Again,
录
when
一下好
we
了。
entered into terminal count, everybody here just started cheering, you know, coming out to get a really good view. And boy, I mean, it lit up the night
待会
sky.
儿应该也
And it
没有
just
画面
shook
对吧？
everything
待会儿估
around.
计
You
就是
feel that?
确认
Like
一下
in
消
my
息了。
bones, I felt that.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
I mean, the cool thing is just kind of the delay between what you see and
闹
what
心
you
啊，各种
hear.
闹心的事
Of
情。
course, the sound travels a little bit slower, and it was just amazing. The ground shook.
他现在
you could
是
hear
我
the
看
thrust
Jonathan 的
pushing
说是
that
现在是
rocket.
30乘
8.8
18000的一
million
个
pounds of
轨道。
thrust.
Yes.
It's incredible. It was
Yeah.
amazing to see here live in person.
How does it compare? So this is your first launch on the ground. How does it compare to your launch when you're in the
远
capsule?
地点还是吹得很高的，光靠一级就能吹这种远地点。
Equally emotional, I think.
Yeah.
We train for everything, and so when we're in that capsule waiting for launch, we're just running our procedures, launchers, you could
趁
almost
机回一下消息
you know, trick us and say that we were in the simulator and it wasn't real. But like in that moment of liftoff, when the thrust builds underneath you, like we saw it today, it's just hard not to be overwhelmed by the emotional experience, the excitement, the joy of that moment. It's incredible.
Yeah, I think we can't say it enough. This team really deserved this moment. They've been working so hard for this moment. When I heard that we got into terminal count, it was, I felt a sense of relief and excitement for them that I think everybody here did. You know, we really wanted them to succeed. We really wanted to see the launch today. And wow, I
一下
will never
子
forget this.
动态多了好
Me
多。
neither. It was an incredible experience to be here and see that happen.
Yeah, was there anything that was particularly surprising to you? Again, this is your first launch. You know, what were you expecting?
You know, I think we also had a nighttime launch for our launch, and so I think one thing you underestimate is how much it lights up the night
我
sky.
趁机去
We
上
were
个厕
able
所
to，watch
爸妈也刚回
all
家，
the
我
way
去
through
打声
that
招呼。
trajectory. We were able to see
好好好
the boosters separate and everything. So it was just an incredible view. It's amazing how much you get to see of the flight path when it's at night
赢
flying up.
SLS
Yeah,
估
and I don't know if
计
you noticed this, but we see
还得
the
花
movement here,
很长时
and
间
the
吧。
trajectory of the rocket
我觉得
looks
与
like
其
it
等
was
星
flying
舰，
away.
不
You
如
know
等
what
等
I
什
mean? I was
么
like, oh my God, that's so
小火
poetic.
箭，
It's
比如说
so
什么
beautiful. I'm so
人
glad we
族
launched today.
人族1号，
Congratulations
不知道
to the team.
啊，很难说啊。
We're
我
gonna
看下
head over
推
to
特现在什么
Daryl,
这个
who's
情
the
况。
launch team. Daryl, you got to count us down through that, through liftoff. I mean, how was that being in the launch control center with them?
Well, Megan, it was something else. I got to tell you, you're looking live inside the firing room where Charlie Blackwell Thompson is about to address her team after a whole lot of hard work and preparation to get to this moment. Let's stand by and listen to her now.
Comm check. But you can't hear it in the room. Can you guys hear me?
Com check 呢？
The press site can hear me, but the room can't. The room can't. You can hear me? Because the guys.
刚才于老师可能是过于激动，其实他说错了参数，其实是30乘1808千米。这样的话，实际上是仍然是在一个亚轨道上面，星级的话仍然会载入，所以的话就在1圈以内载入的，所以的话那个剩下就是 ICPS 必须给力了。当然，我觉得 ICPS 应该不太可能出问题。毕竟是德斯重的上面级，我觉得应该质量方面应该是没啥问题的。朱雀知道的，朱雀知道的，朱雀2号是12月3号，12月初，你们可以去查，朱雀是有的，有时间公布了的，是好像是通过酒泉卫星。酒泉当时周围是发了一个什么公告，然后说是12月初发射。我找一下啊。
Can you guys hear me? Oh, there we go. Is he ready for me? Well, for once, I might be speechless.
对，是什么？
So you guys know I have talked a lot about appreciating
行吧，
the
现在是那
moment
个
that you're
领导
in.
讲话
And we
阶
have
段，
worked
这
hard
是
as a team. You guys have worked
阿尔
hard
特
as a
弥
team.
斯
for
1
this
号发射，
This
应该是这次
is
发射的
your
这个
moment.
总监。这个炸直播，这个跟弹幕没什么关系，不，
It is not
跟就是
by
前面那
chance
个
that you are
Toby
here
Lee
today.
他说的那个喊
So
炸
I
不
want
是
you
不
to
是一
look
回事，
around, look
就
around
是
this
于老
team
师直播被掐这
and
个事
know
情呢
that，you have earned
简
it.
单来说就
You have
是
earned your place in the room.
就是他 B 站他想掐了就掐了嘛，对吧？
This moment, you have earned your place in history.
就我只能说有的时候也没什
You
么
were
理由。
part of a first.
我个人理解
Didn't
呢
come，along
就是一
very
个有一
often.
点偏阴谋论的理解呢，是说，
Once in a career.
就
But
是
we are all part of
大一
something
点的 UP 主
incredibly
是不会被
special.
掐，
The
小 UP
first
就被
launch
掐了，就
of
这样。
Artemis.
就是观看比较多的那几个直播间呢，都是
The first step in returning our
偏官方
country
机构的嘛，
to
就
the
是
moon
你可以理解，就是说
and on
是
Mars.
这个东西普通 UP 最好不要播，所以我就帮于老师在油
What
管
you
这
have
边开个
done
直播间，
will-
就
what you
这
have
么
done
帮个忙，
today
就这
will
个意思。
inspire generations to come. So thank you. Thank you for your resilience. You know, I said at the pre-test briefing, the harder the climb, the better the view. We showed the Space Coast tonight. What a beautiful view it is. So congratulations. So we got a couple of traditions here in launch control. And the first one is when you're in the position for the first time, you get a tie cutting.
我回来，
And so I
干嘛？这是
要
慢点
剪彩了，
my launch
剪
director scissors.
剪彩
And I'm going to get my tie
发射
cut
总
by a
监
couple
剪
of
刀。
legends that are here.
哦，不是剪彩，
And then
是剪领带
anyone。who wants
领带。
their tie cut will be making the rounds in the firing room. You got your console chiefs if they want to do it.
这什么
That's fine. If you
神
want
奇的
me to
传
do
统？
it, you might have to wait a little while, but I'll stay all night if I have to. It'll be my pleasure to cut ties. So I'm gonna take care of mine, and then I have one other presentation that I want to make this evening.
他们已经在算是进入庆祝步骤了。
话说于老师，你那里听我这里的语音怎么样呢？
很不错，现在是蛮舒服的。
那就好。
嗯，就这么点，
象征性嘛。
不好意思。
This is Charlie Blackwell Thompson, Artemis-1 launch
他们
director.
接下来这个是不是还要
Tie cut.
放在一起做个
That
纪
is
念？
a tradition here at NASA. We just got to hear
那
her
肯定啊。
talk to the team, and one thing that really stuck out to me that she said is that they've really earned their place in history. We're coming up on
这个
solar
所有
array
人都是要系领带的，对吧？在
Thanks, Megan. And yes, we're here in Mission Control Houston, still monitoring the Artemis-1 mission and the first flight of Orion atop the Space Launch System. So far, we saw successful liftoff at 1:47 a.m. Eastern Time, all the way through separation from the core stage. We now have Orion in the cryogenic propulsion stage flying free. And we've just heard that we have initiated solar array deploy. So we are turning our focus to that. The spacecraft was running on battery power, but stretching these wings will allow it to stop relying on those batteries and significantly extend the time it can stay in space. So solar array deploy takes about 12 minutes. We have 4 solar arrays that we need to deploy and latch. These will provide power to the spacecraft on its journey to distant retrograde orbit and all the way back to Earth. Once these are properly configured, again, Orion will no longer need to rely solely on battery power. And we expect this to be done about 30 minutes after liftoff. Right now, we're 19 minutes since liftoff today. Orion is now traveling 17,175 miles per hour. We're continuing to hear good calls here in Mission Control Houston from the flight controllers monitoring the mission. A little bit about these solar arrays as we wait. Again, we heard the call that the deploy has been initiated. We'll hear a little bit more about that. Once they start to unfold, these 4 solar arrays generate 11 kilowatts of power, which is enough electricity to power 2 3-bedroom houses, and they have a wingspan of 63 feet. Just one of these 6.5 by 6.5 panels has 1,250 solar cells. So you're looking at a total of 15,000 solar cells. Now, we just heard the call that all 4 solar arrays have been released. So we initially heard the initiation call. That command had been sent. Now those 4 solar arrays are released. Again, this is about a 12-minute process.
有画面，
哦，
就是
居然有
The
画面
solar
了。
arrays will deploy straight, and you're getting a live view right now. This
你
is
看那个
really
2级
exciting.
上面还有
They'll
冰
eventually
块
be
呢，
swept back against
我
the
感觉。
一
vehicle
瞬间的画面。
prior to
有
transportation
冰霜，
to
哎，又有了。
prevent any loads
嗯
from breaking or damaging the arrays.
不知道那是冰霜还是泡沫啊？可也有可能是泡沫啊。
throughout the mission, along with a few other
但是
cameras placed outside and inside the spacecraft to help
诶
us monitor and
摄像头难道
perform
是放在太阳能
various
板
other
上吗？
inspections.
对吧？刚那个镜头还蛮远的。
Of course, if you recall the Apollo capsule design, there were no solar arrays. We had fuel
这
cells
个
instead. So this
这
design
有
with
一个画面，
arrays gives us the opportunity
这
to
才
stay
像
in
画面
orbit
啊！
longer since we
你就没
practically have no limit to the energy available for use from the sun.
那画面给的，又给了一个画面，好多个
Coming
镜
up
头啊，
on
不同镜头，
21 minutes
我一
since
直在动，在
liftoff.
动，看得出来。
Orion is attached to the interim cryogenic propulsion stage. You can see those 4 solar arrays
还有
unfolding now.
每个画面都
And
给
again,
2秒钟
Artemis-1
就
is a flight
停
test.
了，
It's
又有
paving the way for a sustainable presence at the moon. Looking forward to the future,
有没？
Gateway will be our space station
有
in
画面
lunar
就给
orbit.
2、3
And
秒，
we have some
过分
similarities
了。
and differences in the solar arrays unfolding right now on Orion and those that'll be on Gateway.
嗯，
So like we're seeing now, these are deploying autonomously. The Gateway solar arrays
刚
will
才有
as
那个画
well.
面离飞船感觉还蛮远，
And
感
while
觉
these
像
generate those
是
11 kilowatts
难
of
道是放
power,
在太阳能
the
板
2
上吗？
rollout solar arrays or ROSAs on Gateway will generate 60 kilowatts of power. That ROSA design is currently being
哎，真
tested
的是
aboard
的，
the
怎么感
space
觉就
station.
是
We
距
have
离
2
在
new
变
ones
化？
installed and a spacewalk conducted earlier today, preparing for another set.
咦，
Coming up on 22 minutes since liftoff today, Orion and the interim cryogenic propulsion stage traveling over
我觉得
16,800
嘛，
miles
不
per
是什
hour.
么他们的，我觉得不是什么信号不
The
好的问
solar
题，我感觉
arrays
导播的
deployed
选
now
择
are
问题。
part of the European service module. It's comprised
是
of
导播
20,000
比
parts
较
and components.
那
The
个
service
什么
module
紧
was
张。
developed as part of an agreement between NASA and the
哎，
European
这个
Space
是吧？这
Agency,
是
or
在
ESA.
喷燃料吗？这下面这个，
This is the first time NASA is using a European-built
看不到
system
我这
as a
个，
critical
我看这个
element
鼠
to
标纸
power
有
an
毛病，
American
不好意思。
spacecraft.
那个画面就是它下面好像有在喷什么东西。
2级储罐确实就是很小呀，因为2级它是德尔塔4的2级，应该是。
嗯，
哎，对了，普通的德尔塔4的2级也是 ICPS 吗？
我不知道。首先 ICPS
就就是 Interior 什么来着？
我查一下 ICPS。
哦对 ，Interior Cryogenic Propulsion Upper Stage。
我看到了。
如果是装在那个德尔塔上面的话，就叫 Delta Cryogenic Second Stage， 就是 DCSS， 但其实是一个东西。
你讲讲吧，我不是很了解这块。
是低温推进机，就是液氢液氧的。
4 minutes into the flight of Artemis-1, spacecraft now traveling at
你说它
16,500
的
miles per hour around the Earth. We are in solar array deploy, and we have confirmation all 4 arrays are deployed.
4个太阳能板都展开了。
快吧，还有会儿吧。我看它的时间表上是说有12分钟的一个展开时间。应该
Coming up in a little less than 30 minutes is the
应
perigee
该
race
是
maneuver.
全部展开了，但没有伸直，对吧？大概可能是这样的意思。还有一会儿，我还是对这个镜头机位有点，有在想这个机位是在哪儿？好像是
应该就是在
太阳能板
对，应该就是在太阳能板上面，太阳能板的端点或者说是中间的位置。
感觉有一段时间没怎么变化了。刚开始的时候感觉好像还有一点明显的变化，现在好像可能差不多升值了，只是在最后升值，所以位置相变化的比较少。 不知道。
它应该是这样的，就是现在 ICPS 点火了没有？我不太清楚，应该是还没点吧。就是待会儿 ICPS 点火的时候，它的太阳能板会处在展开的状态，但是它不是正常发电的那个展开状态，而是处在一个能够承受过载的展开状态。
有点向后倒的那种状态是吧？
对，它就是那个姿态会不太一样。但是反正现在他这个直播里面好像还啥都没说，反正。
Eastern time this morning, we are looking for a perigee raise maneuver about 53 minutes into today's flight. Again, we are now 25 minutes and 47 seconds into the flight, and we have a
然后 T 加53 分
deployment
钟
of
的
all
时
four
候进
solar
行
arrays.
近地点抬升机动。
Orion's journey to the moon continues as planned. Again, looking forward to
这个
that
应该
perigee raise
是
maneuver. That'll be coming up
20秒的
again
点
at
火，
about
到时候
53 minutes into the mission. So about
先抬升近地
27
点，然后
minutes
再抬
from
升原
now.
地点。原地第二次点火应该是1小时33分钟。哇，我们这个直播有2个小时好了。而且就抬升原地点那个，就进入月球轨道那个点火有将近20分钟。
raise that point closest to Earth and make the orbit more circular. This will also include a checkout of Orion's systems and any adjustments to the solar arrays. It'll be a short burn, less than 30 seconds long, but critical to keep us on track. And it also prepares us for the next engine burn to send Orion to the moon. That's the translunar injection burn. That'll come up a little later, which is a longer burn, another firing of the RL-10 engine on the interim cryogenic propulsion stage.
我刚才好像有说错过，我刚才看那个 Jonathan 推，他说的，说的是1级的轨道是80乘18000公里啊，就是1级的话，因为是要回来的嘛，就是
应该是1800。
我操，1800，对，不好意思，对，4乘1800是1级的最终的轨道，因为要回来的。
对，是一个亚轨道，应该算是。
对，这个30公里是肯定会马上载入。
Hey, thanks,
现在2级的轨道倒没看他破。
Jonathan 自己也激动的打错字了，他把 ICPS 打成 IPCS 了。他说待会儿完成 TLI 机动之后，轨道会进入到466乘37万千米。
This is why we call it the moon board, but the moon, you know.
所以说推的确实也要给人飞机按钮。
And shouted at our neighbor, "I'm going to walk in your face." And in the 60s, we actually did it. 6 times, starting with Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Apollo
他这个是6次人类在月球上登陆点。
successive landings.
对。
Each time delivering human beings to the surface of the moon. Our last one was Apollo 17. And that was in 1972, Gene Cernan and Harrison Smith stepping off for the last time. Now, we have not sent humans back since then, but they accomplished a lot under Apollo. Lots of technological advancements.
其实刚才1级熄火飞之后，它的现在的2级和1级当时的轨道应该差不多，我估计，反正后续点火嘛，应该是很接近。
Because it doesn't have a lot of the geological processes we have here on Earth. You don't have erosion, you don't have wind and water wearing down rocks, you don't have plate tectonics that are constantly recycling the crust. And so everything out there is really old. In fact, one of the rocks brought back on Apollo 15 called the Genesis rock was dated to be 4 billion years old. So from the primordial beginnings of our solar system. But as Kayla said a little bit earlier, those missions were measured in days, their spacewalks in just hours. With Artemis, we're looking to go and we're looking to stay. And we're not looking around the equator like under Apollo. We're looking at the lunar south pole. Now, why? So we haven't sent humans since the 70s to the moon, but we haven't stopped studying it. We've had orbiters like the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, which is literally flying loops around the moon, taking high-resolution images of the surface, so high resolution that you can look them up. They have images of all the different Apollo landing sites, and you can actually see the footprints, the paths they left in the lunar regolith of those sites. We had a mission called L-Cross, which slammed a probe into a crater on the moon, sending out material, some of which potentially hadn't seen direct sunlight for billions of years, and then analyzing what shot out. And through missions like that and others, we've been able to find that there is water ice trapped in those permanently shadowed areas on the moon. A lot of them center around that South Pole. We have already identified 13 potential landing sites for the Artemis-3 mission. And these are where we're going to send our astronauts around the lunar South Pole to access that water ice. Now, why water? Why are we caring about water? Well, it serves a lot of purposes. Obviously,
它顺序是 Artemis-1 是就是绕月对吧 ？Artemis-2 应该是非载人登陆 ，Artemis-3 就是载人登陆了是吧？顺序
没有，阿尔特弥斯2应该是不会进行载人登陆的吧？
非载人登陆，Artemis-3是载人登陆，是这样的。
我查一下。
Something called in situ resource utilization, and really. The whole point of that is to use the moon as this proving ground. We're trying to get to Mars. We're trying to.
我记得 Artemis-2 是载人绕月。
Where we're gonna have to use resources there on.
对，然后你说的无人登陆那个是，应该是 Starship 的第一次无人登陆验证，那个跟阿尔特弥斯2是分开的，应该说是。你想想也是，不太可能让 Starship 跟非要让 Starship 跟那个什么 SLS 一起发，不现实。而且最关键是什么？最关键是到 R2 执行的时候，Halo 和 PPE 应该是不是还没打上去？就是月球轨道门户轨道空间站还没上去，那个东西是登月的时候可能会用到，因为现在也有新的消息说是登月可能第一次载人登月可能不用那个东西，很矛盾啊，反正。
他自己肯定没有完全定好嘛，就是这里还有分歧的话，就说明官方其实也没有完全定下来。我也是啊，就3是非载人的在，就3和4都是Starship 在在月球上的非载人登陆对吧？然后之后才会是
3和4应该理论上都是载人登陆了，3和4都是载人登陆了。就是我就是重新考虑一下，应该说阿尔特弥斯就是以阿尔特弥斯命名的这一系列计划都是跟这个猎户座飞船和 SLS 发射是有关的。然后呢，如果你说是 Starship 的那个发射计划，则是跟阿尔特弥斯应该说某种程度上是分开的，直到第一次载人登陆开始，他们两个才合在一起。
我懂你的意思，就是在那个正式载人开始之前 ，Starship 的无论是做任何登陆的话，都是 Artemis 来命名的，是吧？
应该说它只要都是那个无人登陆的话，应该都是不用阿尔特弥斯命名的。就是我个人的感觉应该是这样，因为我之前看到所有的这种报道都没有说无人。的这个登陆验证任务是会影响，是会冠上阿尔特弥斯的那个名字，好像不会，或者说他可能会说是帮助了阿尔特弥斯，但他不是算在阿尔特弥斯的正式任务里面，应该说是。而真正第一次算在阿尔特弥斯正式任务，应该是第一次载人登陆验证任务应该是阿尔特弥斯3。然后呢，我前一段时间应该是我今天刚看到的一个消息是说，第二次载人验证任务是阿尔特弥斯4，也就是说阿尔特弥斯4也会用 Starship 载人登陆，是这个意思。就是说原先不是说要有 Plan B 的吗？Plan B， 然后说是可能是用那个，是不是是可能还是确定的啊？就是说是可能要用那个国家队那个，但是呢，可能国家队那个也没有那么快出来，所以现在暂时是这么定下来，就是说阿尔特弥斯4也是用 Starship， 但是我觉得用 Starship 这个也不好说，对吧？如果到时候
这边评论补充说4已经合同签了吗？
是。但是我不好说以后会不会有变动，就万一假设可能会存在这么一种情况，就是 Starship 确实比国家队还晚的， 那在这种情况下，很可能也会提前，对吧？这个都很难讲，这个都很难讲。就像是你说星际客机，你说多早以前定下来啊，大家都觉得哎，肯定星际客机先飞了，对吧？结果不仅没有先飞，而且连宇航员都换了，对吧？这个东西都很难预测。我的评价就是，
四的话确实要看，首先看3能不能做好。
One thing I always like to say is spaceflight is a team sport, and I think you guys perfectly demonstrated that today, right? Like, none of us could accomplish this on our own. It takes a really complex team. Nobody can be an expert in all of the systems, all the technology, all of the workarounds we might have to do to get a rocket off the pad. So thank you for the role you played in that team today. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you coming by to talk with us. All right, it's now been about 35 minutes since liftoff of Artemis-1. Orion and ICPS are now free flying, so let's head back to Leah again to talk about how the journey is going so far.
Thanks, Megan. And it has been a pretty smooth ride so far. And we are now, again, like you mentioned, coming up on 36 minutes since launch. That puts us about 17 minutes into the until the perigee raise maneuver. That's going to be the maneuver that lifts the lowest point of Orion's orbit around the Earth and puts us where we need to be ahead of the translunar injection burn. The translunar injection burn is that really long burn that we're going to need to send us on to the moon. So we've been treated to some exciting views from the spacecraft today, including, and we hope to see some from inside the cabin, but we expect to continue receiving photo updates throughout the mission. It takes a team, though, to bring the imagery of Orion down to Earth, so let's meet them.
The imagery that we're collecting on Artemis-1 and the mission itself is preparing to carry humans to the moon. The Orion Imager team is going to be monitoring every aspect of visual spacecraft performance for the entire duration of the mission. The first time that we're going to be live streaming digital video from its spacecraft back down to the Earth from the vicinity of the moon. That's never been done before. What we'll be transmitting live streaming will be lower resolution, more compressed, because we have to fit it into a thinner pipe, if you will. Every one of these cameras is in its position where it is, it's configured the way it is, for a very specific reason. We're going to be monitoring anything that we can see with the cameras for spacecraft performance. The imager teams at NASA are composed of dozens and dozens of very highly trained, very specialized people, engineers, technicians, analysts. If we can see it, we're going to try and keep an eye on it. Imagery has been invaluable throughout the history of NASA. We flew cameras on Mercury, all of that stuff that we saw.
对，T 加53分钟好像是。
The unknown unknowns. It allows us to see things that we didn't anticipate happening before. So when we do fly people on Artemis 2, we can have a high confidence that everything is working the way it should.
I love getting a look at those teams that we don't normally see.
刚才那个 Launch Director 应该还挺年轻的吧？
Kayla just got to interview. A really big thanks to them and everyone that made this liftoff happen tonight. So we are going to toss it back to Megan and Kayla now at KSC.
地方星肯定是在进了 TLI 之后才放。我印象里头应该是猎户座和，因为它是放在猎户座和 ICPS 的那个适配器里面的吧，所以肯定在猎户座分离之后，所以现在还早着呢，因为你不太可能把立方星近地轨道就分离，那不行，那肯定不对。
Secondary payloads for this mission. Kayla, can you talk to us about what secondary payloads are?
Yeah, it just really means that it's not a primary objective of the mission. We're not relying on the success of these CubeSats for overall mission success. It's kind of a bonus payload, right? A chance to deploy these satellites that have different sensors on them and collect some awesome data to support other research objectives.
Yeah, and I know battery life was a concern for some of them, but all 10 were deployed, and scientists, I'm sure, are eager to see what kind of information that hopefully they'll be able to get. And they're just some of several research projects on this flight that will help gather data about the moon and more.
Artemis-1 is paving the way for us to explore deeper and deeper into space.
I think Artemis-1 is significant
On so many levels. It is a new frontier to do science.
So the primary objective is to test the Orion spacecraft integrated with the Space Launch System.
And it is designed to carry out the boldest of the bold missions.
But it's more than just learning how to travel in space. We're taking a lot of cool science along with us on this first mission to the moon.
So as NASA plans to go back to the surface of the moon and then onto Mars,
we want to spend more time there, and that's riskier business. So the more we learn about the moon itself and the environment where we'll be operating, the better we can prepare. We have 10 CubeSats we call secondary payloads, which are small scientific spacecraft of their own that will each be conducting their own scientific mission.
All of these payloads in some form or fashion will help us going forward. They are going to be studying the moon.
And they're going to help us understand what is the moon made out of, what types of rocks, what types of regolith, what types of ice, what's mixed in with water that might be present.
One of them actually is going to attempt to land on the moon. They're going to be studying the sun.
Understanding and studying the space environment or the space weather.
Some different propulsion systems. These novel ideas will ultimately turn into the technology and the systems that we want to use going forward.
There's a lot of cool things going on between all these CubeSats that make up our secondary payloads. Additionally, inside the Orion, we'll be flying an experiment to study space biology.
space biology is where we study the underlying changes that Earth-based biological systems undergo when they're in space.
Or basically, how does life respond to the space environment?
The level of ionizing radiation that you experience when you go beyond the Van Allen belt, so you go beyond the protective magnetic sphere that we have around us, you then get exposed to higher levels of ionizing radiation. So we are flying several space biology experiments.
We will take a series of materials,
plant seeds, fungi, the yeast cell, algae,
and ride along the trip. And then when it comes home, we can analyze how they responded to that environment.
This research will help us thrive in space. It will help us to go further and stay there longer.
In addition to space biology, we'll be learning about how to make astronauts more effective in the Orion in the future. An example of that is something called the Callisto Technology Demonstration.
Lockheed Martin built the Orion spacecraft for NASA, and we'll be flying a secondary.
说到这个，其实重点本来应该是上个月发射的，对吧？拖到这个月，然后使得这个月变得特别那个精彩荟萃了。但说实话呢，哎呀 ，SLS 没有什么画面呀。你说我到时候剪发射记录，我都不知道剪啥。这我是认真的啊，没有画面呢，我就20秒钟就过去了。
So there you have it. I hope you agree with me. This is exciting.
I am just over the moon excited for the Artemis-1 launch.
The science we'll conduct on Artemis-1 lays the groundwork to ensure that we can safely
于老师是不是休息了？
conduct activities at the moon with our astronauts going forward. This really is the stepping stone for us as we take that next giant leap in space exploration.
So a lot of great science.
于老师把麦关了，应该是有事情吧。
I got to speak with astronauts Jessica Watkins and Samantha Cristoforetti while they were still on board about the research there that will benefit future Artemis missions. Jessica, Samantha, your primary job on the space station is to maintain the orbiting lab and conduct science experiments, more than 200 before Crew 4 returns home. Jessica, can you tell me about one of the experiments that will help return us to the moon with the Artemis program?
这个很明显还是Samantha还在那个空间站上的时候录的，现在她已经下来了。
And one of those technologies was the AstroRad experiment. Radiation is one of the challenges that we face when we think about going further into the solar system. And so this vest is an option for providing the crew member with protection. And then one of the mannequins on Artemis-1 launching here later this month will also be wearing the vest. We'll get a sense for its effectiveness on board as well.
Samantha, I know that you've been doing a lot of work to test how we would grow crops in space. What crops are you growing on space station right now, and what's unique about them?
Indeed, actually, right next to
在
to
太
us as
空
we are
种菜
talking to you, we have a
成
little
果汇
space
报
station vegetable garden. It's called X-Root, and in a few weeks it will be full of fully grown, hopefully tomatoes and carrot plants. I don't have much of a green thumb, I must confess, but when I harvested those plants,
零
and I
重
could
力
really,
指示器
really
估计
lean
得
on
要
that
猎户座
slightly
和那
reduced
个上面积
soil,
分离之
it
后
still
才
has that
才会
cement that you
放
would
画面吧。
associate on the
我
ground
不好说哦，
with,
我觉得理论上
walking,
现在就可以
through a
放画面了，
vegetable
但是
garden after a rainy day, there's that moisture in the air, and that was just so pleasant after such a long time living away from any kind of natural environment. It was very pleasant for me.
If it makes you feel any better, I also do not have a green thumb. So what about water? How are you testing critical life support systems like water to hopefully help us stay off Earth longer than we ever have before?
Sure. Yes. So we kind of use the tagline that yesterday's coffee becomes today's coffee. So there's a process by which we can filter our urine, and so we are at the point now where we are able to recycle about 96% of the essentially of our water on board, and are continuing to test new technologies to get even closer to the 98% utilization rate that we'll need for the moon in particular.
Samantha, what are you most excited about for Artemis-1?
Seeing that gigantic rocket take off, and I think it will be just a sign of all those great things to come.
Jessica, you could one day walk on the moon as part of the Artemis program. How does that make you feel?
The idea of being able to explore the surface of another planetary body, especially for me as a geologist and a planetary geologist specifically, is just super exciting. All of the science that we're going to be able to conduct from the surface of the moon.
Jessica, Samantha, thank you so much. And before you go, I'd love to see a flip.
Laugh. I love it. And a double backflip at that. Now, Kayla, you, of course, lived and worked on the International Space Station as part of Crew 3. Do you enjoy, or did you enjoy, doing all those science experiments while you were there? It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah, it's incredible to be a part of every single experiment. It's an honor to play a small role in it. We got to do some really cool tech demonstrations while we were up there too. So for me as an engineer, that was really fun. That's a photo of me doing the first scanning electron microscope samples on the International Space Station. And it was cool for me because I worked with a scanning electron microscope in my graduate school research that took up it was as big as this desk.
好啊
Seeing a miniaturized version of those that we have up there, and imagining how we use it in a lunar or Martian laboratory to better analyze samples and decide what to bring home was really exciting.
好吧
Yeah, and you touched on this earlier before, but I do think it's so important to note again that you're doing science for scientists.
哦，这个太阳能帆板已经好像折好了。
Decades, some of them. So to fulfill that, how does that make you feel?
It's incredible. We're almost like their laboratory technicians.
展开它们往后翻，是太阳飞行图这样。
their entire life, sometimes decades, years, to get that science payload.
说的是我是吧？
It's a really unique laboratory environment, the microgravity environment, the space environment.
我平时不怎么实验室。
to do science that we just can't do.
Yeah, to think that what we do on the
我主要是去汇报一下今天情况。我确实吃了点零食，这个确实不假。
All right, so let's take some more social media questions. Social media is buzzing right now since we launched about 48 minutes ago. So why don't we take the first question, I think again from actor, oh no, let's see, Kayla, how do you feel after launch?
Super inspired. I mean, we talked about it earlier with the Red Crew and in the moments just after launch, but this is really the culmination of a giant team.
我看看 NASA HQ 的照片。
Every single member of our team to pull off a successful launch. It's incredibly complicated, incredibly challenging, and in some cases kind of dangerous for a Red Crew team who went inside the blast danger area to make a fix that was critical to today's launch. And so to see the team succeed and feel that excitement was incredible.
I really still have Charlie Blackwell Thompson's words ringing in my head. The fact that he said the harder the climb, the better the view. 100% correct. All right, next question is from actor Jack Black. He starred in a movie called Apollo 10 and a Half. He has a question for Kayla.
哦，NSF 这边一直有这个
I promise. Let's talk about Orion.
建谣画面
How
吗？
long
没
will
有
it。take for Orion to fly around the moon and come home?
NSF 这边好
What's
像
that re-entry gonna be like? Sounds like it might be a little hot. Coming in hot.
那也是发射完之后才有，
Exactly right, Jack.
就是不是说发射完，就是ICPS 分离之后，它开始有那个什么 ICPS 的画面了，好
Go
像
into。distant retrograde orbits. We'll get a few close flybys and then some time in deep space past the
那我
moon.
是问题，
And then, yeah,
零
that
重力只
re-entry
是
is going to be something else. It's going to be 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, super hot. And so we'll be looking at how
其实
the
现在已经
heat
是
shield
零重力。
performs just to ensure that it'll be able to protect the crew for that speed and temperature.
That's half as hot as the sun.
Yes, it's incredibly hot. So we rely on that heat shield to keep our systems and our crew safe. But we expect that it'll perform well, but we're excited to see how it does in about 26 days.
Okay. One last question from social media. What qualifications are required to become an astronaut?
You have to study STEM. You have to have a master's degree or higher in a STEM field. But besides that, we're looking for people who are awesome team players. So there's a lot of different roads.
好像是必须要有至少
We'll be
硕
getting
士
a
学
lot
位
of
的嘛。
questions about how people themselves can become astronauts. I think that's really cool that we might see and inspire again people who might think about becoming astronauts.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you, Kayla, and thank you for those who sent in those questions. We are about 50 minutes after the launch of Artemis-1, and we are approaching the next critical milestone. That's perigee raise maneuver. So let's head back over to Leah in Mission Control.
奇怪，这推特还这样。
Thanks, Megan. And you're right, we are coming up on perigee raise
Okay.
maneuver about 2 minutes from now. We are now 51 minutes into the flight of Artemis-1 after lifting off at 1:47 a.m.
对，
Eastern
看看
Time
有
from
什
Kennedy
么
Space
好
Center.
图，
The vehicle now
好
traveling
像
over
都
14,600
一般
miles per hour.
噪点都有点
Nearing
大。
Orion's orbit of Earth, it reaches an
看都是
apogee
啥
and
呀
a perigee. The apogee is the highest point above Earth's surface, and the
我
perigee
看
is
到
the lowest. Therefore, this
那张
perigee
还不
raise
错。
maneuver is a firing of the ICPS
我看的
Artemis
是
engine
NASA
and
HQ
the
NASA 官方的，我
lowest
先看
point
看。
of Orion's
这个噪点大的。
This also
我是
included
刚才
a
也看到
checkout
过
of
这个。
Orion's systems and any adjustments to the solar arrays.
NASA
All
HQ
four of
的
those
是吧？
solar arrays,
对。
as you can see, are swept back. That's going to keep them
领
from having any
领导
loads
们
inserted that might
在
damage
观看
them
发射。
for use later in the mission. This also, the perigee raise maneuver will put us
这个是不
into
是
the
局长呀？
position for the translunar injection.
局长用的啥手机呀？
Really big and long burn that we need to send us
三
to
星
the
吗？
moon.
不知道。
We're about 1 minute away from the perigee raise maneuver. This is a shorter burn. It's a less than
这张
30
拍的还可以，
seconds.
但是也下面过曝了。
哦，我终于看到了。好吧，我
是不是要点火了？我赶紧先隐藏一下。
可能是的，我看一下时间。哇，对对对，快到了，我也藏一下。
About 45 seconds until the perigee raise maneuver.
还有45秒进行基地点抬升机动，但是它这个动画很奇怪啊！现在明明没有点火，但是好像在点着了。
看一下时间，它的预定时间是53分半才开始。对啊，这早了1分钟。
这个没有，刚才它这个动画一出来的时候就有这个像是火焰一样的东西。 就很奇怪，我只能说。
我感觉之前好像也有个鸡蛋动画不大对头。靠！我现在这个太阳能板的姿态是对的啊，这个是可以参考一下的。对，这是唯一可以参考的，我觉得。哎呀，我把那图给你吧。找图，我先下载一下，我找了发给你。
太阳能板在这晃。哦，开始点，已经点火了。
已经点了。
点火的状态下，这个太阳能板就在这晃。
吧嗒吧嗒吧嗒吧嗒。所以要放在这个位置啊，确实。就理解上来讲的话，我觉得就是产生震动以后，就晃太阳能板，如果它这样收起来的话，那么对整体的转动惯量影响会小一点。
Flight dynamics
也就
officer
相当于
这就
低
cut off
here at Mission Control Houston that
它
it
应该
was
是
a
先圆轨
burn.
圆轨之后还要在那个什么
Orion traveling
不是圆轨，是就抬升一下近地点。它之前近地点是100公里不到嘛？
哦，对，严格意义上不算圆轨，对，但是应该算入轨。
我也不知道，它反正官方的说法就是抬升轨道近地点嘛，就把推轨道近地点稍微抬升一下，我觉得这样说就可以。 每张图出来，我再去找那个刚才那个推。
所以它这个就是怎么说呢？就是它通过在这个地球轨道上滑行的这个时间，就把它这个窗口的这个时间就拉出来了。就是说，如果说是晚一点的窗口的话，它滑行的时间就会短一点。
嗯，对吧？反正是要对。如果说它点火的时间不一样的话，它就可以通过调整2次点火的时间来相应的调整。2次、3次都有调整机会，每次点火其实都有一个可以相对调整的机会。真的好看。
这是回放了。
And here we go. Hydrogen burn-off igniters initiated. 7, 6, 5. 4-stage engine start. 3, 2, 1. Boosters in ignition. And liftoff of Artemis-1.
主持人那个 ignition 都念不清了，太激动了。
All 4 RS-25 engines on the core stage and 2 solid rocket boosters now propelling the vehicle at 128 miles per hour.
你听着主播的声音，其实还是很紧张的。就这个播报员的声音，其实还是有点紧张。
是，不知道有没有建谣的回放呢？
建谣是啥？
就是舰载遥测的简称。 就是你可以理解成就是舰载相机，舰载的画面。
想得美，都没有。希望有，有分离的，尤其像分离的画面，对吧？ So.
In the loops in mission control. The 4 core stage engines are throttling down.
Now to celebrate Artemis-1.
这就结束了。
Administrator, you got to share what you just told Kayla and I. You said that that was the biggest flame you've ever seen.
他第一次点火提升近地点高度嘛，是提到181公里左右。之前应该是和1级的轨道差不多，1级轨道是80乘1800的高度嘛，就把近地点抬到那个不会重新进大气的180公里。
So what does it mean to you to be the leader of our organization for a historic launch like this?
局长发表重要讲话。
Takes to get this done. How does it feel to be at the helm of that ship?
Well, I got to talk to the Launch Control Center team, and I said to them, "You all are part of a great legacy that has been many years. A lot of sweat and tears." And this legacy is now taking us as we explore the heavens. And it didn't end with Apollo 17. But this time we're going back and we're going to learn a lot of what we have to, and then we're going to Mars with humans.
Why is it such a priority for the agency to land the first woman and first person of color on the moon through this Artemis program?
Well, I think it's reflective of us. It's reflective of America. We are people. Our Latin emblem is E pluribus unum. In the chamber of the United States Senate, over that main door, is E pluribus unum, out of many, one. And so our astronaut corps reflects that. And it's going to be the first boots back on the moon are going to be the first woman and the next man.
对啊，下了6站。
And another goal of the Artemis program is to spur economic development. Can you talk to us about how this program has been able to do that for the country?
Well, if you put it
这样
in
也还不错。
NASA's economic report terms, it's billions of dollars affecting the economy, almost 400,000 jobs. But that's just direct. Think of all the indirect expenditures that are causing the economy to rise and more jobs. For example, what you guys are doing on the station, a lot of your research. Take, for example, the pharmaceutical research. You're helping already one drug that's being manufactured on Earth better because of what you learned in space, and that drug is attacking cancer. Now, what's the value of that? That's just additional value that is added. I remind everybody, in everybody's pocket, they've got a cell phone, and that's got a camera. And that's a camera on a chip.
林中指示其实我不知道你有没有看到，就是 Snoopy 吧，应该是在之前的解说的时候拿出来，特别专门花了一段时间讲零重力指示器的。我估计是有赞助的，他直接说有合作了。
What do you think about
哦，你这一说我就有一点印象了。
generations to follow us?
Well, I think
那个我给你的照片能收吗？看到吗？
And look how their eyes get big when you start talking about space.
我现在还没看到，你是用 Discord 发给我的吗？
Manyfold as we go back to the moon and then on to Mars. It's also going to bring about a new generation of engineers and mathematicians and technologists and scientists, and all the benefits of that additional activity and education coming out of the Artemis generation. Look what that's going to do for our
我好像没看到
economy as well.
群聊和那个什么资料我都看了一下，好像没有。
And
it's
a great day.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Administrator, thank you so much for joining us
张
for
亮
this
看会不会
momentous
好一点？
occasion. As you said, this is the beginning of a new age of space exploration. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
这个是要
And Kayla, that's going to do it for us here at the host desk. Launch
确认一下回车就好了。
in a
我
nearly 26-day mission. Our colleagues
这下看到了。
continue the broadcast and bring you the next
我没
big
办法
milestone
就
to the moon. From Kayla and me, have a great day and go Artemis-1.
Go Artemis.
他们什么情况？他们2次点火播了吗？我也没有，就是
2次点火应该是会播吧，我不知道。
And we had a great ride to
我就长了
We are now 1 hour and 2 minutes since we launched the Artemis-1 mission.
待会儿是1小时半开始，是20分钟的点火，其实也不是特别长，还好。
We recently saw the perigee raise maneuver. That's where we lifted the lowest point of Orion's orbit around the Earth, and it puts us in the perfect position to prepare us for translunar injection burn coming up in about 25 minutes.
它接下来下一次点火叫做TLI 是 Translunar Injection， 是20分钟吗？
是距离现在还有20分钟。是吗？还是我刚刚没听。
是点火时间是20分钟，距现在应该是半小时。
哦，那也挺快的，那也挺快的。
点整整20分钟。
Hey, thanks, Leah. Everybody, welcome back to the moon board. So, translunar injection, this is the big one. Just a refresher, we're going to be using this, the interim cryogenic propulsion stage. This is what's taken over for all of our in-space propulsion maneuvers after that core stage and those boosters have since dropped away. Modified upper stage from the Delta IV family of rockets from United Launch Alliance. Hydrogen, oxygen, fueling the RL-10B-2 engine produces about 24,000 pounds of thrust in a vacuum. Now, the translunar injection is what's going to give us the energy to go from low Earth orbit all the way out here. Now, what does that mean? Here comes a really overly simplified orbital mechanics lesson. Let's say you're in orbit around a planet, say Earth, and you're in a nice circular orbit, but you want to have that orbit be even higher. Well, what you can do is fire your engine behind you, increase your speed, and that then increases the corresponding apogee, or the highest point of your orbit, on the other side, and that's how you raise it up. Well, if you wanted to make it into a nice circle, you could follow up and do another burn right here, and that would raise your perigee, or your lowest point, and then you're in a circular orbit around Earth. That's essentially called a Hohmann transfer. If you've ever followed our missions to the space station, that's what we're doing to kind of gradually raise our orbit until we get to the space station. But for this, we're talking about a lot more energy to get somewhere a lot farther away. So what we're essentially doing is we're going to be in this circular orbit around planet Earth, and we are going to be firing that engine with 24,000 pounds of thrust for about 18 minutes. And what that does is it doesn't just increase your apogee by a little, it increases it all the way out, and it's timed. So by the time Orion is hitting its apogee, the highest point of that orbit, the moon will have moved into position that you're entering into its sphere of influence. You're entering into that area where the lunar gravity is going to be able to capture you. And so that's why we're firing the engine for that long. We need to have that much thrust, that much time to get the
Discord
energy to go out there. So that's the rough
是那个于老师一个私人的 Discord， 这得看他愿不愿意那个什么，让你加进来。
job largely done in the Artemis-1 mission. As we heard, it's got some secondary payloads up in this stage adapter here that it's going to deploy on its way out. The ICBS will have one more burn out of TLI called the disposal burn. And what that's going to do is put it on a trajectory almost looking parallel to that of Orion, where it's going to go around the moon, slingshot away, and then go into what's called a heliocentric orbit. It's actually going to go into orbit around the sun, just like Earth. It's going to leave the Earth-Moon system completely. And then after that, all of the propulsion duties get handed over to the European Service Module. So it'll be using its engines. It's going to do the outbound trajectory correction burn, at least the first one on flight day 1, and a couple more until we get out to the moon and get ready to head into distant retrograde orbit. So that's TLI. It's coming up next. It's going to be a really big moment to pay attention to. So we'll send it back over to Leah to walk us through the ops. Leah?
Thanks, Dan. We are 1 hour, 6 minutes, and 30 seconds into the flight of Artemis-1, now traveling over 15,200 miles per hour. Again, we've recently had the perigee raise maneuver, and in
来看一下图吧，于老师发给我的图。
Translunar injection burn that Dan just showcased that's going to send us to the moon. But our mission started off.
我的封禁时间是有明确的，封禁时间就刚好是24小时，到明天中午。知道了。我刚刚没注意，确实是别人跟我说到明天就好了。上面是有显示的。
这是 Trevor 的那个。
对 Trevor。
是 SF，这个就远了一点。我觉得这个是不是拿他们那个直播拍的？
Again, the space launch system is what carried us into orbit.
还是有点噪点，我觉得颜色调的还不错。
是
远距离，就是不是说远距离，是那个不放大就还好。
The solid rocket booster manager and Johnny Heffler, the RS-25 engine manager.
这个是那个舰轨。
maiden voyage of the rocket. Now they both got to watch it live at Kennedy Space Center. So a big hi to you, Bruce and Johnny. Thank you so much for joining us today.
看上去好。
Thank you.
这是一个人还是3个人？我感觉好像是不是3个人合作的？
Tell me a little bit about SLS performance today. Did it
我这边有
perform
延
as
迟，
you
我还不知道你
expected?
在看的是哪一张。对。
So I manage the booster part of the rocket, and
就这个 Austin， 可我不知道怎么读。
我去找一下，我也看一下。草冠你看过了？
这个右上角这个亮点应该是那个镜头上的反光。
对，应该是。
这个也是，都是镜头上的反光。这个是非常的亮，你看到没？这固推。
那等一下，有可能是不是月亮？有可能今天是它是有月亮的。
哦，对，也有可能是月亮，是有可能是月亮。
可能是月亮，然后被起飞的时候被晃了一下，然后把起飞的长曝光阶段可能也因此糊了一点。
不，它
不对，
不好说，它应该是全程的这个长曝光。
对，全程的嘛，这个一条应该是月亮的位置变动。对，应该是月亮走了一段。
这张那个不是长曝光的，有那个航天飞机那个味儿的，大烟，拉了一路的烟。
那张就是进云的那一张，对吧？
对。
不愧是固特。
这个是有很多人都在拍。
对，我比较喜欢这种有前顶的，这个前顶的照片，其实我还蛮喜欢，就蛮有感觉的。
是。
看看你的直播画面。没调好。你放大了看是吧？
对啊，放大看吧。我这边就是我窗口采集，就是我看的时候就把那个采集过去，就看完了。
Then I'm glad it all went so well. And so after you get that data back from today, what's next for your team?
Well, for my team, we've still got a ton of work to do. We're not only, we're working on at least 3 flight sets at the same time, and so we've got 2 and 3 and 4 to work on. We also are working on a new booster that's a composite case design that will replace this steel case version that we're flying today. So we're excited about that, and there's a lot of work going on there as well. So we've got a lot to do, and we'll just keep doing it.
So RS-25 super busy as well. We have the Artemis-2 engines have already been delivered to NASA, and they're on schedule to be installed in the Artemis-2 core stage in mid-January. We're also about to start the certification test series for the new RS-25 engines that we're building. We have heritage engines for the first 4 flights. Beyond that, coming in on Artemis-5, we will fly what we call the RS-25 restart engines that have been redesigned to reduce cost and reestablish manufacturing for future flights. So we're really excited to get into that certification test series really soon as well.
我刚才没注意听是 ULA 的人吗
All right, well, thank you both so much again for joining us. I'm glad that you got to
好像一个是负责固推的，一个是负责发动机的。应该是诺格和 Aerojet 洛克达因的，应该是。
我看我第2个我才听了一下他在讲 Artemis-5 的引擎，知道，本来就没注意听。
At orbital velocity, again, Orion is currently attached to the interim cryogenic propulsion stage, which recently performed the perigee raise maneuver, and we are standing by for translator ejection burn now less than 15 minutes away. It's going to be about an 18-minute burn that will commit us to the moon. Part of the Artemis program's goal is to inspire the next generation of dreamers and explorers. So we want to show you what students are doing right now to bring the Artemis missions to life.
之前是有一个仿 Discord 的软件叫开黑的，但是后来好像改名了。
游戏的，那么你公司会用吗？上班的话会用视频开会吗？
上班就是如果是外企啊，我说外企的情况就是 Slack 是 Slack 还是 Slack 吧，好像是，我不知道读音是什么，反正就那个它也是跟 Discord 很像，也是一个有语音有视频啥都有。
这样是 OK。之前在国外用的比较多就是 Zoom 或者 Teams。这两个好像跟国内连都不是很顺。
There's an exciting challenge for you. So find a mentor and build a team of students.
Review the rules and requirements.
如果说国内就是直接就是国内对国内的话，一般用比较多的是，就是说如果就是最普通的人最普遍的那个工具应该是 QQ 语音，但是 QQ 语音的质量比较差。
视频会议可能不大行吧？
视频会议就是腾讯会议嘛，一般是国内的话。
腾讯会议，
Again, 1 hour and 13 minutes, 30 seconds since liftoff today. We are looking towards translator ejection burn now about 13 minutes away. That's going to send us to the moon. But did you know that you were invited to fly on the first Artemis mission too? Earlier this year, NASA asked the public to create a pass to virtually board Orion. Anyone who signed up got to include their name on a flash drive. I know my name is on there, and that flash drive is on Orion right now for its journey around the moon. It has more than 3.3 million names.
因为他 Artemis 也收集过签名的是吧？我没参与啊，我都没注意到。
是。
你有签吗？
我忘了好像没有。
我上次对啊，是好奇号还是？听说我填过一次，我忘了是哪一个了都。
This is the Orion Crew Station, where the
然
crew
后
will be
后来一次就没填了，玩过一次。
commander seats on the left. The
当时还
pilot
很多
seats on
B
the
站
right.
上很多人让我帮他要那个卡片，我帮填那，我还帮很多人
The
填过。
Orion spacecraft is designed to carry 4 crew members to lunar orbit, which we're preparing for on Artemis 2. NASA astronaut Randy Bresnik brought us through the
Which is
hatch of
several
the
days
vehicle.
longer than the previous crewed Apollo missions to the moon. The interior is about 30% larger than those Apollo-era capsules to give more crew living and working space. Everything crew needs is packed right under the floor, thanks to the Orion stowage system. Under these panels is space for everything ranging from food, clothing, sleeping
确实也
bags,
是啊，像是去月球的话，他们的活动空间真的是最好能大一点。
On the upper part of the crew compartment,
是。
or what we call the overhead, is the docking compartment, a crucial component to future exploration.
我飞船虽然还可以，但是如果是待1个礼拜的话，还是有点憋屈的。
Once they dock,
其实我觉得猎户座的空间没有说大特别多，都在一个等级之内，你可以这么理解，我觉得。
数量级。
因为猎户座它其实是，就是说，它的那个空间是增大的，但是可活动空间可能是差不多的，因为它是更多的地方是用来储物，还有放那个什么，有一个紧急的那个避难所，就是它空间都用在其他的地方，可以这么理解。因为毕竟它是深空探测嘛，它有一些深空探测自己的需求，对空间的需求，所以它最终导致人员的实际活动空间会要可能跟龙飞船是差不多的。
现在就是看他们视频晒出来的感觉，好像还可以。让我查查看啊，这个他们有加方，就是地方是多少？我看。
那个地方你肯定看上去数值是比龙飞船高的，但是就是反正我刚才看录像，我明显感觉就是感觉也跟龙飞船差不多，因为它那个地板上它是比那个龙飞船高的，它整个地板上全是储物空间，然后还有那个放那个避难所的地方啊什么的乱七八糟的，估计就没有那么多空间，就是供人自由活动的空间不会特别大。
看一下。
反正对于宇航员来说的话，反正他们只要经过训练，能够适应这样的空间，我觉得都无伤大雅。
就它都是20个立方，是。
So this is what's going to be doing all of our maneuvers after we're done with ICPS
and that translator injection burn.
And it's going to be doing that with a mix of 3 different types of engines. First one here on the bottom is the large orbital maneuvering system engine. This one produces about 6,000 pounds of thrust that's going to be doing a lot of your really major pushing maneuvers when we get into the powered flybys, the insertion into distant retrograde orbit, the burns to start sending us back home.
就是这样说的，他说是那个加压是20个立方，然后是宇航员可以待的地方是9个立方，然后龙飞船是总共是9个立方，然后
auxiliary thrusters, they're in pairs. Those are a little bit smaller. Each one of those produces about 105 pounds of thrust each, but they add some additional push to that orbital maneuvering system engine. And then we also have 24 reaction control system thrusters, these smaller ones that you can see all around Orion. Those are used for a lot of attitude control.
就是那个刚刚说，就是他们宇航员能待的地方是和龙飞船的总的加压舱的体积刚好差不多，应该是宽敞一些。
Now, all of those engines share a common fuel source. They're using what are called hypergolic fuels, a mix of a fuel and an oxidizer, and methyl hydrazine and nitrogen tetroxide.
常温燃料，但是 hypergolic 我查一下，我忘了翻译，就正儿八经直译应该是什么意思？
就是混合点燃的燃料，好像我也不太记得。
哦，好像意思是自然燃料。
Really necessary for small spacecraft in orbit because it takes a tremendous amount of electrical energy just to keep fuels that cold, and so we can store them at a much closer temperature essentially when they're on board this spacecraft. So that's all of the primary propulsion that's going to take over. And again, that's going to be after we get through translunar injection. We're going to be doing correction burns on the way out. A number around the moon is hang out and for about a week, and then eventually sending us on the way back home. But still attached to ICPS.
我印象里面应该是一甲机井的，就是一般这种中小型航天器，不能说中小型航天器了，应该说就是航天器和末级就比较小的末级，一般都用的是一甲机井。一甲机井四氧化二氮应该是。
It's a long burn for us, about 18 minutes long. But before we get to that milestone, I have a friend of mine here. It's Stu McClung, the Program Planning and Control Office Chief of Staff for the Orion program. Stu, I am so glad that you could join us today. So how is the spacecraft performing so far, and what's next?
So far so well, good.
双组员推进剂。
Clean during the pre-launch and ascent. The team's down the hall in the MER, taking a look, working everything. It looks good so far, so that's good. And of course, we got the burn coming. After the burn, we'll start ticking through all of our planned events. Like we have a solar, the SAW modal survey. The wings will have a modal survey that we'll do later this morning. One of the first DTOs that we'll take a look at and evaluate how they react.
So DTO, designated test objective. What's another one of those that we'll be looking at over the next 26 days?
We have probably a good 100 of them. They, culminate from everything from like the modal survey to how the cooling system behaves, common track system. On entry day, one of our major test objectives is looking at how the heat shield and how it handles entry heating.
So how does it feel to be here today and see the future of human space exploration unfold?
It's great. I was doing my shift in the MER earlier today. Haven't slept. The emotion and the adrenaline's got me going. It's great to be a part of this. It's great watching, watching the KSC team execute. And now this is day one for us. We've got 26 days for our team to execute now, and we'll go do our job and set the stage for future Artemis exploration.
And we're excited. We're going to be here along the way for all those major milestones, burns, all the other exciting events that we are looking forward to. So thank you so much for joining us here. We are really excited. A big congrats to you and your team.
Thanks. Let's go have a good burn and let's go to the moon.
Let's do it. We are now less than 5 minutes away from the translator injection burn. Again, this is the burn that's going to send us around the moon. Going to commit us to a lunar trajectory. It is approximately an 18-minute burn. It's a firing of that RL-10 engine on the interim cryogenic propulsion
要点18分钟。
对。这看起来很好，这张好糊啊。让卡洛斯拍了一张差点穿越但没有穿越的，就穿过月亮。刚好在月亮边上，其实这样也不错。那可能是拍了一张后放大。
You've got a view here of the White Flight Control Room in Mission Control Houston. This is where all of the teams will be monitoring the mission over the next 26 days. Teams monitored launch tonight. There are, of course, several different shifts that'll be working here.
休斯顿这边现在只要看看就行，对吧？他们其实不做，就不这个阶段他们不负责的吧？应该是，我应该是猎户座飞船开始运行之后才移交给他们去。
All right, we are coming up now on about 3 minutes until the translunar injection burn.
是有可能，我没有研究过这个流程。
Again, this is about an 18-minute long burn firing of the RL-10 engine on the interim cryogenic propulsion stage.
一般龙飞船的时候发射，就是在任务发射的时候，他们开始都是歇着的嘛，就是到就龙飞船变轨和龙飞船对接的时候，这边才比较忙。我猜这个差不多，发射阶段应该是没什么他们什么事情，他们只要搭建一下就好。
Designed to test a unique lunar orbit for our future space station around the moon called Gateway. And just 2 days ago, Capstone arrived at its intended orbit around the moon. So we're very excited for that milestone. It really helps pave the way for our future Artemis missions.
顶10号线前2天低轨道这边说了一下，其实算是一个门户座发射的一个先行测试吧。
We are now 1 hour 20, coming up on 25 minutes since liftoff from Kennedy Space Center today at 1:47 a.m. Eastern Time. We had a really smooth ride to orbit. We saw solid rocket booster jettison as well as launch abort system jettison. Eventually, we had core stage separation, which put us in the configuration that we have now with Orion connected to the interim cryogenic propulsion stage and flying free. The solar arrays deployed and have been swept back in preparation for the translunar injection burn. Earlier, we had the perigee raise maneuver, which lifted the lowest part of Orion's orbit around the Earth, put us in this perfect positioning ahead of translunar injection burn. A good shot here of our 2 flight controllers. On the left, you saw Judd Freeling. He is the ascent flight controller. He's been with his team here for the last several hours. And to his right is Rick LeBrode. He's the lead flight controller for...
我网络卡了，
我也卡了。我觉得是 NASA 的问题了吧？哦，你看我们2个之间的连接是没问题的，我和 YouTube 之间的连接也是没问题的，我这个直播是绿色的，现在那就是 NASA 的问题。NASA 行不行啊？交换机坏了，交换机坏了。
Less than a minute away from translunar injection burn.
第一次搞4K 直播，有点吃不消。有
越说越来了。
点火的卡的是，反正看到应该就已经看到点火画面了。我勒个去！这个确定是 NASA 卡的。
This is a live view from the spacecraft.
NASA 说我们搞720P 直播是有道理的。我勒个去！这什么鬼
？Australia towards the Pacific Ocean. This translunar injection burn
will
begin to take it away from the Earth, breaking it free from the pull of gravity. We're standing by for.
他们现在已经开始就是月球转移的一个点火，月球轨道转移的点火，这个点火是18分钟多一点。
Information from the booster officer that the translunar injection burn has begun and that we are at max.
认真的吗 ，NASA？ 我看看你们能不能调低一个分辨率，看它流畅。
这个我觉得我们这边做什么都是没有用的，这个是 NASA 那边的问题。我是在看1080了都，然后我们2个都卡了，就是我觉得 NASA 那边的问题。
Australia towards the Pacific Ocean. This translunar injection burn will begin to take it away from the Earth.
以前是祖传 720P 啊，从来没有搞过720。我印象没有错的话 ，NASA 这是第一次搞720P 以上的直播，对。
We have confirmation from the booster officer that the translunar injection burn has begun.
也不完全，上次 龙飞船发射哦，不过我不知道是在 NASA 频道是不是1080p。上次看的龙飞船发射是在 SpaceX 那边是1080p。
让我想想，我好像印象当中有过一次是SpaceX 和 NASA 的源是不同的清晰度的，好像是有过那么一次。我觉得是那么回事。哇，他们有没有注意到这个问题？对，其实可以看一下那个他们的评论就知道了，对吧
？Begins its return home from the moon. I'm going to keep reporting that number.
他们也在吐槽，他们都在吐槽，所以肯定他们在吐槽。
我怀疑可能是
gravity now traveling at 17,000.
确实，可能是 NASA 的在看，我感觉到这个 live latency 这个值一直在变。
NASA 官方说一个可以把聊天窗口关了就会好一些，什么鬼？我试一下，能关了？开玩笑。就 Popper 就可以了。我觉得他这个说法不靠谱。
We're now traveling over 18,000 miles per hour. Again, that speed is going to increase as well.
肯定是卡，大家都在说卡的问题，就肯定是他们语言的问题。是不是好了
？Coming up on 2.5 minutes into the translunar injection.
SpaceX 是很早就开始搞 4K 以上的直播，但是我是一直播1080，因为我这边屏幕只有1080。
主要是SpaceX 那边只有个别的画面是真的有 4K， 其他的好像90%以上的画面都是480p， 所以它 4K 没有太大意义，因为它建谣都是那个很渣的分辨率，所以我觉得就是整体分辨率提上去也没啥用。我觉得它能搞一个2K 就行了，因为怎么说呢，就是我不知道你有没有发现，就 YouTube 它1080p 的画质和2K 的画质是一个很大的差异。
Now 3.5 minutes into the translunar
我没注意过，我很少看2K 的。
就是你多看游戏那种视频的话，会发现，因为游戏视频的那个画面复杂度高一点，就会发现 YouTube 那个1080p 真的特别渣。但是，一旦开到2K 就一下好很多，因为它1080p 用的是 H.264 的编码，然后2K 用的 VP9 的2K 就明显好很多，就真的是好很多。
跟你的屏幕有没有关系？你的屏幕
不跟屏幕没关系，它那个就是说画质这个东西跟分辨率不一定是挂钩了，它有一个绝对的参数是衡量画质的，但是就是说正常的人来说，就是正常的观众来说的话，他只知道码率或者分辨率，但其实码率和分辨率这两个东西不能完全决定画质，就是码率它只能决定画质的上限，然后呢分辨率差不多也是只能决定画质的上限，但这个下限呢就是取决于它这个编码效率了。就是像 YouTube 的话，它总是喜欢用那个编码速度特别快的编码器之类的话，特别是像 H.264 这种，它反正就没有优化的很好，就比较差。我觉得可能还不如 B 站的1080p
这只是我完全不熟悉，神奇啊！就是现在他们这个直播画面就感觉明显没有1080，感觉就是以前的720p 的话，我刚才一点，就是说，你知道 SpaceX 的直播，我感觉还是有一就比如说，就它上级的画面确实就只有0.8，只有那个圆就这个那样子，但它地面画面可以拍的，地面起飞的画面可以拍得非常清楚嘛。这还是我觉得还是有点用。
但是地面起飞就只有。感觉就是10几秒、几十秒，就感觉因此把整个视频体积搞大了，就很难受了。就应该权衡一下，2K 就可以，2K 就可以了。
其实有这个选项还是好。最好当然是以后是在线画面，就是线上的画面也可以稍微提高一点，至少提高到1080的话就爽一点。那这想想，我觉得不建议，而且很多人说实话，我跟你说，很多人其实就看起飞的部分，然后后面就不看。
那倒也是，
起飞降落了就是这样，主要是。
We're now
这
6
个应
minutes
该
into the
是
translator
那
injection
个
burn.
NASA 的国
Orion
YouTube， 我
traveling at
看你今天的直播还是很顺的，
19,500
就
per hour,
至
being
少
propelled by
没
the
有额
interim
外的卡顿，
cryogenic propulsion stage.
就卡的应该是圆的。
Still
因为
quiet
因为
here
我
on Loop
怎么
17
说我
control Houston. Teams are tracking out issues
我刚才
during
切换了一下
the
分辨率，
injection
让
burn.
它的那个缓冲区重置了一下，
Again,
然后
this is
好
about
像
an
就不卡
18-minute
了。
burn, so we have
如果你要是把它
approximately
逼的一点
11.5
缓冲区
minutes
没
left.
有，就它是容易卡顿。但是我觉得这个更多的还是 NASA 的问题，因为之前一直播着都没啥问题，就突然间就开始就感觉可能是 NASA 的网络不太稳定。
Yes.
It's also been 1 hour and 33 minutes
How
since
many
liftoff today from Kennedy
is
Space
that
Center. That was a
打电话？
1:47 a.m. Eastern Time launch. A smooth ride uphill, as we heard from Bruce Tiller and Johnny Heflin working with SLS at Marshall Space Flight Center. And this view from Mission Control Houston, teams continuing to monitor the Artemis-1 mission. This is where they will be around the clock for the next 26 days, all the way until we bring Orion home for a safe splashdown.
看一下，点火再过去1分钟吧，我好像感觉已经过去很久了。还有到51分左右啊，到51分的点火。
Orion now traveling at almost 20,000 miles per
1 小
hour,
时51分点火结束。
237 miles away from the moon. Again, that number continuing to shrink.
看来这边的反过来，这个是 control， 这个是 FAO，FA 是 AO 是 flight， 不知道，那么这个根本就看不清楚了。
As we've mentioned in today's coverage, multiple countries are represented in Artemis-1 through the SLS, Orion, and European Service Council, as well as the payloads dragging along. While NASA is leading the Artemis missions, international partnerships will play a key role in achieving sustainable presence on the moon while preparing to send humans to Mars. In 2021, over a dozen countries signed the Artemis Accords, which will establish a common set of principles to govern the civil exploration and use of outer space. The Artemis Accords will create a safe, transparent environment that facilitates exploration, science, and commercial activities for all of humanity. This cooperation not only furthers space exploration, but also enhances peaceful relationships between countries on Earth. We're now over 9 minutes into the translunar injection burn, an 18-minute burn, so we have about 9 minutes left. We're about halfway through. The RL-10 engine continues to fire at maximum thrust. Orion traveling attached to the interim cryogenic propulsion stage, now over 20,600 miles
看到
per
这边
hour.
是一个有一个 booster， 还有一个 MPO， 不知道什么意思，还有是 ECOM， 应该是通讯的意思。这个是，我在看空司里面看到牌子都是不肯定。这个好像是 P， 看不清楚。FO 是什么意思？我来看。
It's been 1 hour and 37 minutes since we launched today. Again, that was 1:47 a.m. Eastern Time from Kennedy Space Center. Orion is still attached to the interim cryogenic propulsion stage. This is the last burn for the interim cryogenic propulsion stage while attached to Orion. It will also have a disposal burn later on. About 10 minutes after we have ICPS cut off, Orion will separate from the interim cryogenic propulsion stage itself, and the capsule will be flying free, still attached to the European Service Module. We've got about 7 minutes left in the translunar injection burn. Orion traveling now at over 21,000 miles per hour.
还是卡呀，现在又卡了。 无语。临时包装袋，我可没听到啊。
是我这边的。
啊，你把 Discord
我懂了，是那个什么，我忘了设置了，那个 Discord 我设置了按键通话，但是 OBS 我忘记了。
他也这么回事啊，就没关系，说下声音也可以，我也可以。
The RL-10 engine continues to fire on the interim cryogenic propulsion stage, powering the translunar injection burn. This is the second firing of the ICPS today. The first we saw was the perigee raise maneuver, which lifted the lowest point of Orion's orbit around the Earth and put it in the proper positioning for this burn. This is the burn that commits us to the moon.
ICPS 有什么
We're now over 12 minutes into this burn. Again, it's about an 18-minute burn, so less than 6 minutes left. And 1 hour 39 minutes since we launched. Orion and ICPS now traveling at over 21,400 miles per hour. And as I promised, we continue to grow closer to the moon, now 249,000 miles away.
那我看一下，查一下。
安慰你了，可能。其实我也就随便扔个话题。反正现在看就是他点火嘛，也不看，就在等他的消息。
Now over 13 minutes into the
ICPS 的话，
就是
和那个半人马不太一样，就是它只有单发动机的这个版本，所以它推力就比较小，所以它的点火时间非常长。然后还有一点就是它的这个 R10是那个可延伸的那个喷管。就之前如果你看德斯重的那个发射的话，会发现那个1、2级分离之后。可能我不太确定，可能发射直播有没有那个画面，应该有。就是即使是播保密载荷，有些保密载荷它2级也是会有画面的，就是只有那个分离的那个画面，就是你能看到它那个2级的那个喷管是慢慢被拉出来的。这个是 ICPS 或者说 DCSS 它这个210都是这样的，它设计上跟那个半人马是不一样。因为半人马，我的理解是因为半人马可能它那个底部，一个是半人马的它的舰体直径可能要小一点，第二是它那个。它一般是半人马是可以塞2台210，如果你塞2台210，它应该没有那么大空间去再放这个能扩展喷管的这个版本的210了。然后呢，第二点就是它这个 ICPS DCSS 它这个是一个悬挂储箱的设计，就不是一个供底储箱设计，就跟那个半人马不一样。悬挂储箱设计当然也有好处，就是说是它可以让那个较大体积的这个氢罐可以是和主舰体直径一致的，然后较小体积的氧罐是挂在这个氢罐下面，这样的话它在成立方面的话就可以设计上面就可以节省一些材料，就会比半人马的话，可能因为半人马它那个是供底设计的话，就会导致它那个上下罐都是成立的，但是都是成全部的力，但是就是比如说1级火箭在飞行的时候，它整个载荷是2个罐都要承受的，但是那个这种悬挂储箱的话，它只有1个储罐是承受那个在1级火箭发射时的所有负载的，第2个储罐它只是挂在那里，它是相当于是它不承来自上面的力，可以这么理解。
1级起飞的时候，我看我的鼠标在自我上面，1级是直接作用于上面这个罐体了，下面这个等于是挂在这里。但2级现在点火就反过来，是在下面那个罐在成立，然后传到前部，对吧？
对，现在是反过来，但是实际上的话，现在的话它是怎么说呢？就是它其实这个力它不会很大，它不会有1级火箭那个力大。
这可以理解。为什么要用一个可扩展的一个喷嘴呢？它是节约空间吗？应该工作期还是稳定的。
你说节约空间也对，但是最主要是提升它的性能，就是它加了这个扩展喷管之后，它比那个半人马上的210，一个是推力又增加了，另外一个是比冲也增加了。
我的意思是， 如果你想要一定性能的话，你就可以设计一个中管大小嘛。它这样做扩展的话是，就为什么就不直接做一个很大的喷嘛？我要做这么扩展的动作。
对，你要是这么理解也对，但是我的意思就是说，它在折叠的状态下，它的大小就跟半人马的那个不折叠的喷管是差不多大的。
可能还是空间可能是因素之一啊。
对，空间肯定。对，它肯定还是会考虑到这个空间，就是它两者的这个空间都，就是它这个1、2级的这个旗舰段的这个空间不会给很多，因为给多了它又觉得你是那个什么嘛，对吧？浪费那个质量在这个旗舰段上了。
也是，它这个悬挂式设计，你轻罐和氧罐这边分开，中间还空开一点距离，这有什么讲究吗？
它空开可能是放的那个 RCS 的装置。就比较 RCS 的储罐，但是我没有研究，我没有研究那么细，感觉。
对，这几个罐子估计是 RCS 的加压罐啊。
它的 RCS 应该是独发 RCS， 就 RCS 装的还是常温燃料。
它这放的顺序是不是有什么讲究？我在想是，就它两个是不是靠拢的话会有温度上的问题啊？
当然靠拢肯定靠拢肯定会有温度上的问题，但是我觉得它这个分开主要还是给那个 RCS 的储罐给空间放，应该是这个，主要是这个目的。
不能挂在这个边上，就挂在液氧边上。
它可能成立的设计上面又要有进行单独的设计。哎，点火是不是结束了？
我看一下啊，到。不是预告说到 T 1小时51分钟吗？他这句话是不是一直时间都是错的？
这我就不懂了。
他这点火也
哎真的。
真的假的？结束提早了好多啊！
那是为什么提早了呢？
也是准时的。
is now traveling at 22,500 miles per hour, 247,450 miles away from Earth. Now that the interim cryogenic propulsion stage has completed its translunar injection burn, it is no longer needed to propel us to the moon. It's done its job and it will separate from Orion. After it separates, those 10 CubeSats we discussed will be deployed from the Orion stage adapter, which is below the service module and above the ICPS. Each payload will be ejected with a spring mechanism from dispensers installed on the Orion stage adapter. And again, these will help us study the moon and space weather, test innovative propulsion technologies, analyze the effects of radiation on organisms, and provide high-resolution imagery of the Earth and moon. The CubeSat deploys will start just short of about 4 hours after launch. Once those CubeSats are deployed, the ICPS will be on track for disposal in a heliocentric orbit, meaning it will closely circle the sun until destroyed.
OK， 就是说，现在完成第2次点火之后，那么2级就等于是完成它的任务了，就接下来就是分离，然后靠猎户座他自己去跑，应该是靠那个欧洲服务舱去跑，对吧？应该来说的话。
The next change we'll see is for the ICPS to separate from Orion and the service module. Those will continue flying free on their journey toward the moon.
分离的时间是这个预报是2小时01分钟分离啊。我这边外面下雨了。还在吗？小会关门了。我还是猜他们可能有乌龙，我还是猜他这个动画可能是提前结束了，然后那个主播也以为结束了这样播报，我不是很确定。我觉得。
It's now been an hour, 47 minutes, and 30 seconds
我刚才看他这个动画演示
into
点火时间也提前了
of
嘛。
the Artemis program.
我
Orion
不
now
是相信
traveling
这个动画。
21,860 miles per hour, 1,129 miles away from Earth.
这个任务是26天多一点吧，应该是。
Interim cryogenic propulsion stage again. Should be about 10 minutes after the translunar injection burn is complete, so approximately 7 minutes from now.
但这个也应该是通过折叠来提升自己的能力。建筑空间里面能塞更大的喷管的话呢，就对真空引擎的喷管的话，确实越大越好这种感觉。载荷的话，但是载荷的话主要是一个猎户座飞船，还有10个小卫星啊。那个猎户座飞船里面主要是做载人服务嘛，有两个假人啊，而且是女性假人，然后做各种测试嘛，包括辐射啊这种就是生命体安全的环境安全的测试。然后是轨道的话，好像就是也不说飞一圈嘛，就是它绕月差不多1圈吧，都特别有个轨道设计的就是它绕行月球的距离会比较长啊，然后绕过一次之后就飞回来。然后还有10分多钟是分离。
我来说一下供底设计吧，就是供底的话，就是它要做那个隔热层嘛，但是隔热层这个东西它也是要占用质量的嘛。但是如果做悬挂的话，它可能就不用做这个隔热层了，就它某种程度上，实际上啊，就是如果在小上面积上面，其实是做悬挂储项，某种程度上是更节省质量，因为你说像那个阿迪亚纳5好像是，特别是这种大舰体直径1级。如果你要搞一个跟1级舰体直径一样的2级，如果你做供底的话，会导致它的质量浪费非常严重。因为它那个做供底的之后呢，会导致它至少有3个底都是那个什么成立的结构，就这3个底都是特殊加固过的，然后中间那个底还要加隔热，然后最后它算下来，其实反正阿里亚纳5和阿里亚纳6这2个火箭的上面积好像都是供底的，但是都质量都很大，干质量都很大，然后算下来它的性能就损失很厉害。但是如果你换成悬挂储项的话，可能就会节省很多质量。就是说它不是说供底这个设计一定是就是在所有情况下都那个适合的。
Yes.有道理。反正就刚才炫火团应该强调就是这个悬挂设计啊，就是这边是液氧枪，我鼠标指一下，这边这个液氧枪是挂在这个液氢箱是挂在液氧箱下面的。你的意思就是像一般
不是是大的那个是液氢箱，小的那个是液氧。因为液氢的密度更小，
氢体，
而且它不仅是因为密度更小，而且是因为燃烧的时候比例上来说也是好像是液氢要就是那应该是体积比，反正是肯定要大一点。
对，是氢氧燃烧嘛，就是两个氢烧一个氧，然后氢的密度要低很多，所以导致它体积比的话大概是应该是差16倍吧。差不多，
这个我忘了，反正就是它那个什么，就是它实际使用氢氧发动机实际使用的混合比要比那个化学反应方程式那个要更加偏向氢，就是氢会更多
一点，对，氢更多一点。
它是一个复燃燃烧。整体上来说，这个复燃燃烧，
对，所以就是氢的体积占比要比氧大出很多，所以这也是一个，我估计也是一个为什么要做悬挂的嘛，就是它的设计体积要比这个小太多了，挂着有道理。
还有
的话就，
还有就是那个，我上次看了一个，忘了是视频还是一个文章啊，就是说那个。氢氧发动机它那个性能最优的状态实际上就是复燃状态，因为复燃状态会导致它的尾气中会有较多的这个氢分子吧，应该是我不太清楚啊，应该是氢原子或者氢分子，反正就是氢会比较多，这样就会因为氢的话它转化动能方面的话它好像效率比较高还是什么，所以它实际上喷出来的那个尾气的速度要快一点。如果在负氢燃烧的情况下，如果你变成那种恰好的燃烧或者是负氧燃烧都不行。就是除了这个抗腐蚀和燃烧温度这个考虑来讲的话，负氢燃烧它的这个绝对性能上也是要更强一点。
是的，对，这个我理解的。这个我当时这个主要是有2个因素嘛，一个是那个排气的平均分子量，平均分子量越小的话，那么就是你可以转，就是同样的总能量，如果说你的质量越小，单个分子质量越小的话，那你转化的动量就更多，那你就更有效推进。还有一个就是比热的问题。然后产物里面水更多的话，水的比热会比氢分子要大很多。那么越多的水的话，就有更多的热量被浪费在比热上面嘛。
对
所以2个因素放在一起的话，就导致如果排气里面含有更多的氢的话，那么它的效率就会提高，应该是这样的一个道理。但是太阳能板又重新展开了，现在太阳能板应该是工作状态，你看到这动画了？
是的，是的。
而且它又飘到那个佛罗里达上空了。飞完一圈了，真是。
Hearing confirmation from teams here in Mission Control Houston that the solar arrays are in their proper configuration for interim cryogenic propulsion stage separation. Again, we just saw the translunar injection burn.
你刚刚说 Aaron 那种供体式的设计，他们应该用的不是液氢吧？应该是用的是煤油吧？
没有，是氢氧的，就是对氢氧可以做供底，不是说不能做，只是说它做了供底之后，它这个综合算下来，它的性能会损失的比较大，就是主要是说氢氧的上面级。如果是氢氧的1级，其实供底相对来说还是要有一定的性能提升，就是关键还是看它这个分级的规模。一般来说的话，我看一下这个 ICPS 的这个质量有多大啊？
对，刚刚说的那个保温问题，主要还有一个刚刚没有补充，就是液氢和液氧的温度其实差的蛮多的，液氢要求温度要低很多啊，应该是零下这个
分离了。
真的，那刚刚是对的，对的，那提前了好多呀，提前了5分钟。那么刚才点火结束也是提前了。开始难道也提前了？确实分离，对，有镜头确认了。动画演示是对的啊，那好吧，我之前猜错了。这应该是2级看猎户座。不对，
是猎户座
看2级，猎户座看2级这是。那这个应该算任务尾声了吧？
差不多，就看那个零重力指示器到底给不给画面吧。
内部画面，船舱内部画面我们给不给？对，但是他们完全没有给过内部画面的。应该给一个对吧？
对啊。我刚看了一下 ICPS 的质量是30吨，30吨的话，反正肯定比起猎鹰9号2级肯定是要小的。然后呢，其实当然比阿里亚纳5的2级还是要大，比半人马也要大一点，但是相对来说它仍然处在这个怎么说，就是中小型的2级这个量级上面，就是不算一个很大的2级。
单纯重量上说是吧？
对，就是总重的总质量是就加满燃料30吨，30.7吨。但是它的干质量只有3吨多。当然，其实这干质比不是特别好，但是会比阿迪亚纳5那个2级要强。那个2级就是蟹中之蟹。
鄙视的语气。
因为它那个2级好像是干质比，好像是就是从干质比的角度上来讲，它那个好像是只有1:5吧，还是多少？就感觉已经快变成那种像是航天飞机的感觉。当然它只是个2级，要比航天飞机当然要小很多很多。
这边问那个假人，对，2个假人，2个女性假人是在猎户座飞船里。还有什么事件？这边还有一个 upper stage separation burn， 这是什么操作？是等于是猎户座飞船不就是这个飞船这边点火来进行分离吗？
他好像前面就是我看直播的时候讲到了，就是说实际上他初始轨道是把这个 ICPS 送到了一个如果不再进行点火，会被月球扰动到日心轨道的轨道上。而猎户座的服务舱就是要 再进行一次校准点火，然后把轨道导向那个不会飞到日心轨道的轨道上，而是说就算不进行点火，我忘了是不是不进行点火，它会那个自由返回，好像是我忘了是不是自由返回了，好像后来还改了，就是说如果它点火失败了，就是在月球附近的那个点火没能成功进行，那它就算什么操作都不做，它也能返回地球，应该是。
我听一下大家的介绍。
Excited to introduce Artemis All Access. It's a short video product that will provide updates about mission accomplishments with a look at what's to come, as well as inside looks and explainers about the mission. And if you want to stay updated on mission activities and how to watch splashdown, you can still register as an online mission participant with NASA's virtual guest program to stay informed as the mission progresses. Virtual mission participants for Artemis-1 will receive curated resource and mission activities straight to their inbox. You can register at go.nasa.gov/virtual-artemis.
好吧，我重新看了一下，它不是说那个点火之后校准点火之后进入到一个自由返回，而是说校准点火之后它才能进入到可以点火到进入它这个目标的绕月轨道上，它是一个目标的绕月轨道，叫做 Distant Retrograde Orbit， 就是远距离反向绕月轨道。就是说，
之前这个点火之前确实是可以进入太阳的公转轨道的。
对，就是它也不是说直接进入，而是说是在进入月球的引力范围之后被月球扰动，然后会进入到日心轨道上。这样的话可以保证这个 ICPS 这个末期它不会那个成为环绕地球轨道的太空垃圾，因为太空垃圾处理方面一般来说都是，如果你进入日心轨道了就没人管你的，因为日心轨道上的那种小行星啊什么东西特别多，就再加上日心轨道它更加空旷，所以它相对来说不被视为太空垃圾。但是如果在地心轨道上的话，就会各方面都会产生影响。而最糟糕的是在月心轨道上，如果在月心轨道上的话，因为月心轨道上的空间比地心轨道这个很明显就更小嘛，而且第二点是，如果打到月球轨道上的话，就是打到绕月轨道上的话，它更难清理，因为你现在所有地球的航天器都在地球上发射嘛，所以你要是派一个太空垃圾清理，那很显然。就咱们就别的不说，哪怕是打到高轨都很麻烦，你还要进到月球轨道，那就更麻烦了。那几乎是所以尽量绕月的物体都是要么坠月，要么就日心轨道，就是这两种选择。
明白了。因为地球周遭的轨道的话，其实地球轨道也就近地理轨道稍微拥挤一点，只要是到中轨道或者高轨道，除掉一个同步轨道也很拥挤以外，其他地方其实是很随意的，就中轨道也是没有人会说什么的。但月球就不一样，月球很小嘛，就你的意思就是，我确实也没有想到这个问题，就月球轨道其实比地球更加麻烦，所以要特别小心，不能产生绕月的垃圾，是这意思。
但其实地球轨道也有一个问题，反正我之前玩 KSP 的感觉就是，如果是相对更加的高轨，就是会被月球影响到的那种轨道的话，就是也不太适合有太空垃圾，因为那样的话很容易这个太空垃圾就被月球捕获了，就变成绕月物体了，就变成绕月的垃圾了。
总归就是尽量要保证月球轨道上是尽量干净，这个月球轨道确实垃圾弄起来就太不好对付了。
是，
比地球轨道还要敏感。他这边问立方星有没有分离？立方星是先分离吗？立方星分离，
立方星的话，我看它好像是分3个阶段分离，有的立方星在猎户座分离完了之后就分离了，有的在路途中分离，还有的在快要接近月球了才分离。它这个图上面是这样显示的，我看一下文字说明。可能是因为每个立方星它的那个目标轨道是不一样的，因为好像有的立方星要进入日心轨道的，有的不进的话，它可能就早分离了这样。
其实它的轨道设计有可能是考虑到立方线，就是这种中途分离的立方线，也许是不去月球做，只是做一个升空的测试的。然后它这个任务之后就可以借助月球引力进入一个就太阳轨道之后就不会成为绕月垃圾了，可能有这种考虑在里面。因为它现在电火结束的一个轨道比如现在它的轨道是可以借助月球跳板进入太阳轨道的一个轨道，对吧？
嗯，刚才那句我没听清，不好意思。
现在它的轨道确认定是可以借助月球引力跳板进入太阳轨道的一个状态，对吧？
应该是。但是如果说有的立方星它要绕月的话，它不能一直待着嘛。就是要绕月的立方星，它得要提前分离。
要提前分离吗？
就是说，就不是说提前分离，就是说是在到达月球之前就要分离，是这个意思。
啊，那肯定就是到达月球之前，它提早调一下轨道嘛。
对，它就是
如果说如果有卫星立方星，就是纯粹做一个升空实验的话，那它就顺着这个轨道跑的话，就可以直接进太阳轨道，就避免成为垃圾的，对吧？
对，你可以这么理解，可以这么理解。但是这个就是说，影响它这个分离时机到底偏后还是偏前，我个人理解是偏后分离的反而是进到日心轨道，偏前分离的才是要进到绕月轨道，因为它必须它那个校正点火最好是越早点越好，加越早点越省燃料。
对，确实应该是。等于他的直播就到这里就结束，对吧？刚才没有特别注意听。
我也没注意听。
应该是结束，他直播应该就是后续的话就是靠文字播报
了。所以没有零重力指示器嘛，一直在等这个。
没有啊，他们关直播
啊，真的没了，直接关直播了。
给舱内画面，没有能给舱内。
好气，我感觉就没看到什么画面。
这个没办法，就 NASA 直播，它期待值我其实是还算是比较低的，就是这样子，包括中间卡的那个，主要就是我们看了个现场，主要是这个是比较重要的，对吧？
对，我看了一下，它这个确实，它有的立方星是进到日心轨道的，然后有的立方星是要撞月的。有的立方星是要绕月的，所以每个立方星它的那个轨道都不一样，所以就最终决定它的分离时机是不一样。对，
道理。
那今天就先播到这里了。
虽然没有看到舱内画面表现，我不知道它后面会不会有没有机会给放出来，但反正直播看就是没了。
对，直播就这样了。
还行了，蛮曲折的，今天其实真的蛮曲折。
还行，不过我后面这个网络问题解决了，感觉还是挺那个啥的，挺给力的，没断。
录像就先录到这里吧。录像录到这里，感谢大家收看，这是反正就是湖州，一起跟大家走个过程嘛，现场看一下这个，这边歌王这个定数的一个曲折的发展历程。直播不接风没有办法，然后后续的话再关注一下他们的更新动态吧。那么视频就录到这里，感谢大家一起收看这个。如果说能看到最后的话，也可以发条弹幕。那么录像就到这里，再见。
再见。